Alright, everybody, we should be live for this week's episode of the Safely Extreme podcast here on Game Wisdom, where is in the art and science of games. I'm Matthew. Each week we discuss a topic about game dev or game design. Joining me as always, my co-host from Nexus Games, Sharky.
Hello, everybody. And definitely got a interesting topic today.
We missed last week's show, unfortunately, as a whole lot of unfortunate news happened that week. I had really good news with the fact that I finished my fourth book, and unfortunately some bad news when a family friend passed away, sadly. And also, it was the same week that I was sick with a nasty cold. I know you were starting to feel lousy as well.
Yeah, and I'm still feeling lousy. So yeah, it's been a good couple weeks, for both of us.
Of course. I guess some positives this week. I am about ready to sign another 2-book deal with my publisher for books 5 and 6 of the Game Design Deep Dive series. These will be focusing on free-to-play design and then deck building or CCG design.
Nice.
Two things you have no idea about, right?
No. I've never worked on a free-to-play game or a CCG or one that had both of them in it or a game called Neon Continuum. Not working on any of those things currently. Not at all. I've
That's
had
good,
some I guess you could take this as some good news. My last stream that ended up horribly and everything that basically never started, kind of thing, came up with a new meme from it. I had to rush to get ready, and somebody seemingly actively sabotaged me by turning the oven back on my already done burritos. And heated them up to lava temperature, kind of thing, and then I'm like, I got 5 minutes before I gotta start the stream, and I go grab my food, and then I start eating it, and it's freaking lava hot, searing my tongue, and it's like, you know what lava tastes like? It tastes like seared tongue. And so now we have the lava burrito meme going around.
Well, you should have joined us for Overcooked 2 then. You could have made some of those for the people.
Yeah.
But oh boy. So I've been playing a lot of Dyson Sphere program. I'm gonna probably get more into Evil Genius 2 once the embargo lifts, I believe. I think it either lifts tonight or tomorrow. So definitely going to do more on that one. What else?
I'm actually surprised that you have gotten as far into DSP as you have. Because I didn't expect you to. I expected you to play a little bit of Dyson Sphere and then quit. I didn't expect you to keep on going and then get as far as you have.
Well, I think it works being, a little bit more approachable than Factorio. It's not as deep, and again, the game's still in early access. But I do like the min-max optimization challenge of it.
Well, I mean that's even more so in Factorio. But you didn't seem to really get that hooked to Factorio.
I think the general presentation, the survival mechanics, kind of bounced me off Factorio a little bit. Because when I play games like Anno and City Builders, I hate the military and combat modes. I just want to focus on the optimization.
Yeah. But you seem to like Industry, which is the focusing on the combat stuff with still the optimization there too. But it's less optimization and it's more focused on the military. So why do you like both extremes, but you don't like The middle kind of thing. You don't like the safely extreme version of it.
Mm-hmm.
The original version.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I love Ministry as much as I like DSP. I think again for that same reason. And I'm working on posts about optimization games too, talking more about like Anno versus City Builders, and so on. Like,
well, I tell you one thing you have to do.
hmm?
When you make that post, you got to make sure that post is highly optimized, or else you'll get flack for it. You can't have an unoptimized post about optimization.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see. Anything else happening? Well, we played the Monster Train DLC. We got a lot of like games I think on deck. I got a lot of like indie titles that just like showed up. Trying to think of some other ones I'm really excited about playing. We tried that Battle Trauma last night. You missed it. Of a one and I getting eaten by your shark friends in the deep dark ocean.
Who says I wasn't there?
Yeah, that's what I was telling Juan, that shark's not here and we're being attacked by shark monsters. Coincidence? I think not. But yeah, definitely looking forward to some of the games for the Indie Spotlight coming up.
Sounds fun.
But I think speaking about games, let's get to our topic, and that's something about game preservation. This is something that I always hold, or I think I hold very near and dear to me, considering all the games that I've played and all the ones I've yet to play. And the news this week, sadly, is not good. If you missed the announcements, Sony is finally shutting down the storefronts for the PSP, PSP Vita, and the PlayStation 3. So that means once they're gone, those games are now basically inaccessible out in terms of legal means, I guess I should say.
Yeah. When they first made the announcement, a lot of people were doom and gloom, and I was like, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that, because, it means that you won't be able to purchase them, just like if you retired a game on Steam. It still means that you in theory, would be able to play this. But then I put a caveat in there, but this is Sony, so, who knows what else they'll screw up. And apparently they're removing access to them completely. Mm-hmm. Basically, you can still technically play them if you have, if you already own it, it's already installed, and your built-in battery does not die, one that's not rechargeable. So once it does die, it's gone, and you can't get it back.
It's easy.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever these news pieces pop up, it always sparks in my mind to talk about game preservation, which I think that is a very important topic and it's something more people need to consider.
Yeah, it furthers my point of leaving Sony kind of thing, because when I used to be really a huge fan of Sony. I dearly loved the PS1, dearly loved the PS2, and then I got the PS3, and that's where things started to fall apart. Because, the online subscription, the online games that are now disappearing kind of thing, the fact of the, red light of death and the orange light of death, where they just didn't put a good enough, fan in it to keep it cool. But they did in the Japanese version. They just cheaped out on all the other versions and put a fan that, any idiot basically could look at and tell you that's a bad fan, because I pulled it out knowing nothing about fans, and I seen it and I was like, oh, why'd they do that? Because basically, how you have the fan hub and then you have the sweeping blades, right? Mm-hmm. Well, the sweeping blades kind of, funnel a tornado, kind of funneling all the hot air from that up to the middle of the core and then out, right? Mm-hmm. Well, right there at the core, there's this gap all the way around where the fan blades do not touch the core. So it'll just push all the hot air into that little gap. Some of it will go out from the core, but that hot air right there around the core will continue to get hotter and hotter and hotter until it overheats and melts the solder on your chip. In which case, your processor, since it's mounting in upside down, will then have gravity pulling it down because there won't be anything physically holding it in, and then it'll disconnect from the solder, and the system will shut off because there's no longer a CPU hooked up to it. Then the solder will cool down and harden because there's no heat being produced, and then you have no CPU in your system, aka the red light and yellow light of death.
Lovely. And to Matthew's point, Nintendo is certainly not innocent of our topic tonight either.
Oh yeah, and Nintendo not only re-releases their games and makes them null kind of thing to a point. I don't think they ever made it completely null though. I bet they just made it where you couldn't purchase them, but if you already owned them, you could keep them on that one console kind of thing. But if you bought a new console, you would have to pay $5-10 to upgrade to that version on every single game. And not only that, but they went after emulator sites and attacked them to remove the game preservation.
And of course, the fact that each storefront is not kind of universal. So all the games you bought on the Wii or the Wii U don't work on the Switch.
Yeah. Well, the reason for that is because they're all emulators. So you just need a new emulator. You don't even necessarily need a new ROM as long as the new emulator is compatible with the old ROMs, but they don't sell the emulator. They sell a one-use emulator with a ROM kind of thing that is tied directly to that. And you just can't, there's no way to really do it without a lot of hacking. But if you're going to do a lot of hacking, you might as well just get an emulator on PC and be done with it. Yeah. Although that's a lot harder now that Nintendo has sued people, not because they would win, but because the fact is the other people couldn't afford to defend themselves.
And to Matthew's point about them also shutting down Super Mario Brothers, the what was that, like the Battle Royale game that everyone seems to really like. The what was it, like the Super Mario 3D All-Stars Collection, I think goes away in like 3 days, which is literally them rebranding Super Mario Galaxy 1, 2, and Sunshine.
Yep. And don't forget about the limited edition, what was that? What they call it? The little mini NES?
NES Classics, NES Classic.
Yeah.
Oh, and the fact that they have the NES eShop, but it doesn't have anywhere near the same amount of games as the previous ones, and requires a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription to do it. It's like they don't want you to play old games.
Yeah. Because they want to resell them. Well, they do want you to play them. They just don't want you to replay them without rebuying them.
At this point, Nintendo is quadruple dipped on some of their games at this point?
Oh, they probably way exceeded that. I'm pretty sure Mario 1 has been released at least, 50 times.
Got family sneezing again in the other room.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure Mario has been released at least 50 times because it's been released at least on every console they've ever had. Pretty sure it's been released on almost every handheld they had past like the first one kind of thing. I'm pretty sure they've released it in every miniature console they've done. I'm pretty sure they've released it, many different other places that I don't know, kind of thing. I'm sure it's probably 50 plus times by now.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, of course, like what David said, that they release them at full price. Or, people want to spend like $30-$40 on a 10 to 15-year-old game.
I mean, they do I think they did like $5 to $10 on the eShops for some of their games. But that's still ridiculous. That's beyond ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Like for that price, they should have a collection of games for $5 to $10.
Yeah, because I'm sure people are lining up to spend money to play like the original Kirby for like $5 to $10.
Yeah.
And then there's also issues of games that are just not available at all, whether it's because of rights issues or just like not having access to that original source code.
Yeah. Here's the question: Has Microsoft ever done anything like that? Because I mean, we've hit on Sony and Nintendo. What has Microsoft done in this? Because I'm not thinking of anything.
That's a good question. With the Xbox Network, I think that's what they're now calling XBLA, or just XBL. I think you can pretty much like any game they have like on that service you can download.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure that every if you had a game that they would carry over, wouldn't they?
I think so. I have not owned a Xbox console since 360, so I am out of the loop there.
Yeah, I haven't ever owned one, but I can't think of any place where they have done bad for game preservation.
Which is ironic, considering how much everyone loves, Windows 10 and when Microsoft does updates to it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got one right now telling me that, I've got to update now or it's going to cancel my Windows 10. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to Matthew's point about, like, 3D and HD remakes, like, if you're legitimately remaking the game, like, bring it to modern-day standards, that's a completely different story. What we're focusing on are games that are just, locked to platforms that are just have like no modern example or modern option to play them.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a ton of them. And part of this becomes very difficult when I'm writing the Game Design Deep Dive series that has historical chapters, and it's very hard to get footage of games more than 5 to 10 years ago on a console.
Yep. I mean, just take a screenshot of your CRT TV on your regular NES, right?
Mm-hmm.
Easy as that. I mean, they had screenshot tools back in NES days, right?
Oh, yes. And yeah, a lot of the images I took from like NES and SNES games were not exactly from the original consoles. I'm trying to say that to avoid any YouTube flags right there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate, and that's why this topic is such a big deal. Because it shouldn't be this difficult to play a game from 10 years ago, let alone, 5 years ago for some of these consoles.
Well, see, the thing you have to understand is that, Nintendo wants eternal money off of everything they make. And Sony hates people who doesn't buy their newest, latest stuff, and still hates the people who do, because they want to play some of their older stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that Xbox loves us? I don't think so, but
and now as you say that, you're going to get an update. Microsoft must shut down your version of Windows 10. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye. Exactly. And this is where Steam has really come to the forefront of things, and really been a tool for the for good kind of thing.
Yeah, and even to like a lesser extent, like GOG.
Itch.io for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you feel about games retiring on Steam? Because when a game retires on Steam, what happens is their Steam page is no longer able to be found unless you're really, really searching for it on Google, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You won't find it through Steam. It's impossible to find it through Steam. You can only find it through Google. Google will record it, but Steam will block all access to it unless you own the game and you click on the game and you click store page and then you go to the store page, and then it'll look all the same except for you won't be able to buy it, but you shouldn't see that if you already own it.
Mm-hmm.
It should say in library kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the thing is nobody's able to buy it. Anybody can re-download it that already owns it. The store page, and everything functions the same, just without the buy button kind of thing.
That's a tough one. I think in today's market, like right now, I think it's a suitable band-aid, but I don't think that should be the standard for the future.
Yeah. We had to do that with the last game because we had to shut down the LLC, meaning that we couldn't get any more sales. So, that's the, kind of the route of the dead developer, basically. Of course, we, technically survived in some fashion. Mostly willpower fashion. Refusal to quit. Even though we probably should have. But,
Yeah.
Doing the smart thing would mean never getting into game development at all. So, it's already established that I wasn't going to do the smart thing to begin with. So doesn't matter if quitting was the smart thing, because I'm already doing game development, which was not the smart thing.
Yeah, and I guess what makes this very hard, as another to add yet even more difficulty to this discussion, is that especially for PC games in general, it's just the Wild West. If we look at any game release from 1980 to maybe mid 2000 in terms of whether or not that game can actually still be run on modern day computers.
Mm-hmm. Because you had when we swapped from Windows XP to what was it? What came after that?
95, I believe.
No. Not 95 was after. Way before, rather. XP.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm thinking Windows 3. Well, I'm even dating myself even more.
Yeah, that's even way before.
Windows 3, Windows XP.
So when the last few was 95, 98 XP.
Vista, I think, was after XP.
Yeah, Vista was when we swapped to 64-bit architecture on the CPUs, and from 32 to 64. Because you can get some Windows XP versions that are 64-bit, but those are only the professional versions or the super professional versions, not just Windows Professional, but like the business, Windows Business or something like that. And that one you can get in 64-bit, but all the basically all the Windows XP that you can get access to are basically 32-bit, where the Vista is where they swap to 64-bit kind of thing. And with that architecture change in the CPUs kind of thing, it makes all the other games before it not compatible because they. But Windows did a good thing of trying to make the automatic compatibility thing to where it would get a lot of programs that weren't compatible with the 64-bit and made them actually work with it.
Mm-hmm.
But not everything was that way.
Yep. And that makes it increasingly difficult for, when people try to get modern day versions of it. I know there are freeware updates to XCOM, Star Control 2. I think they're available like when you get like their GOG versions, or they're recommended. And like fans and modders have been a huge boon to preservation, despite what developers and publishers will say.
Mm-hmm.
And the other issue, of course, is the licensing. And this is something that I've spoken with people like Farsight Games about when they were doing the digitalization of pinballs, or pinball tables. And the same thing applies here, that it can be a nightmare of trying to get a legal port or a legal update to some of these older games.
Oh yeah, because like a lot of these games, a lot of these older games are train wrecks, little train wrecks, and there's a lot of new games that are this way too. Train wrecks in the making kind of thing. They just haven't collided yet because they haven't disappeared yet. But the second they disappear, kind of thing, the second that train wreck happens, it may be a few years before people notice it, but the train wreck will be there. Mm-hmm. And what that is this company owns the title of the game. This company owns the gameplay of the game. This company owns the music for that game. This company owns the art for that game. This company owns the code for that game. This company owns the font used in the title of the game. This company owns the trademarks for the game. This one owns the copyrights for the game. And the thing is the only way you could possibly get a copy and paste remake of the game, is more or less more than that. Is you have to either buy all of those things from all the different people and have them all say yes, or get all their permissions and basically buy it still in a different way by percentages or royalties or whatever kind of thing. And you have to get all that set up before you could even dream about making a copy and paste game more or less more than that. Because if you want more than that, you're going to have to either own it or you're going to have to get special permission from whatever stuff you're changing to actually be able to physically change it.
And don't forget, of course, that there's licensed music in your game. And the nightmare involved with that.
Yeah, the music was one of the things I said somebody owned.
Yeah, and again, every game is different in this aspect. And like when we played Stubbs the Zombie the other day, that all the music is gone. So as you run around, you just hear whoosh. You just hear like the wind around Stubbs for like 10 minutes at a time.
Yeah. And who knows what the situation is behind that? I mean, the pretty obvious thing is that the original music people did not give the rights to use that music, but maybe they could have added some more music, paid to have more music, but that would depend on the contract and everything that music people were signed, because maybe they're signed, what was signed is that this cannot be substituted. You cannot substitute another song for our songs.
Well, from what I've seen, I've spoken to people about this in the past. The issue is it's basically the IP law and how they're assigned when they get these kinds of licensed stuff into games. That the issue is that copyright law does not mesh with digital copies of games or digital work. When they think about IPs in this regard, they think about this as a fixed thing, As in, I am giving you this license so you can use it in this property in this exact version until the end of time.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, as we know with PC games, they need to be updated. And it kind of goes to that whole idea of like when we talk about like copywriting food products, that if I want to make a drink like Pepsi or Coca-Cola, their formula and their branding is exact. And if I change it, like even like a few points, I can say, oh, it's a legitimately different product. You know, it's not Pepsi, it's Josh C. Josh C. Cola. And they don't have a thing to stand on, because when you copyright a formula, you copyright something specific like that, it is down to that science. So with the copyright law as it stands, that when they sign these deals, and this is another issue when it comes to preservation, is that people don't think about game preservation as in, can this game be sellable 20 years in the future or even 10 years? They're thinking about, how do I get as much money for this game as I can the next 1 to 2 years, and then I completely forget about this game.
Yeah. So, well, when you talk about the life cycles of games, you know, usually they're about 3 years kind of thing. Because after 3 years, they're basically not going to make any money.
And that actually goes with a point I want to talk about that relates to a post that I wrote on Game Wisdom this past week.
Unless you're Nintendo and you just resell your games 5,000 times.
Yeah. So we've seen this with Grand Theft Auto several times, that the second they touch any bit of that code, it is considered that they are working on the development of Grand Theft Auto. And the license to kind of use the music during the development of Grand Theft Auto has expired, obviously, because, well, the game is like 4, 5, even 10 years old from the older Grand Theft Autos. So the licensees say, well, no, you've already finished this game. Why are you still working on it? You know, your time is up. And that's why whenever Grand Theft Auto gets an update, lots and lots of music goes away with it, even if it has nothing to do with the music portion of the game.
Yep. Which is sad.
Oh, yes.
Which is the reason why, like, when I get music for my games, I make sure that I own all the rights. You know, which generally costs more.
Of course, yeah.
It's like, this music is mine, it's not yours. And the whole thing just annoys me to hell, because it's like, you make this music for me, yet I'm only allowed to use it for a certain time period. I'm paying to rent the music that I paid you to make.
Yeah.
It's like no, if I pay you for music, that music is mine. It's not yours. It's not a rental. It's mine, you know. And I don't want you to use that music elsewhere. I don't want you copyright claiming everybody who streams my games because you want more money, kind of thing. And you're going to hurt the visibility of my game on YouTube, because people are not going to stream my game or play my game because
they get copyright claimed.
They get copyright claimed, and they don't make any money off of it. So I lose that aspect, kind of thing. And yeah, like I want to own all the rights. The music is mine, not yours. Just like when I buy art, the art is mine, not yours.
Yep, and to David's comment, royalty-free music does have an advantage, but we've seen cases where sometimes that royalty-free music suddenly doesn't become royalty-free anymore.
Yeah. There's royalty-free that ends up no longer being royalty-free. As well as, there are bad actors out there that will, create a YouTube channel. And I've had this already happen on my YouTube channel. Absolutely royalty-free music that is free for commercial use and all that other stuff. And somebody took one of their videos, one of their song videos on YouTube, downloaded it, uploaded it to their own one, and then started filing copyright claims against me even though they didn't make the song, they didn't do anything with the song other than download it and re-upload it. You know, it's not their song, doesn't belong to them, but they're trying to make money off of it. They probably are making money off of it, but I reported their channel to YouTube, so hopefully YouTube has some kind of, you know, action there to where they you know, tear them a new mud hole. But likelihood, YouTube is going to do nothing.
Yep, and again, a major part about this whole discussion about game preservation really lies in the fault of the game industry itself. And the reason is that, as we've said, we've had this discussion about, you know, video games being art many times over. A lot of people don't think about video games long term. And like I said, when we say long term, we're not talking a year. We're talking 5, 10, 15 years plus. And when you don't have things in place as early as you can in order to kind of secure this, it leads to situations like this, where you have one side of the industry that so much of these games are console locked, there's no way to play them. You have the other side that is, you know, very much, you know, the hacker, you know, modding crack side that is trying to preserve these games, and they're considered, you know, illegal criminals for doing it. And
well, they're considered illegal criminals by the people who
want the money.
Want the money, basically.
Yeah.
But in the court system, they are not. Mm-hmm. They're not considered the innocent either. They're considered in the gray area. The gray area that somebody would have to have a lawsuit happen, and then there has to be a result from that to establish precedent to actually find out if it's on the white or black side, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because apparently nothing with U.S. law is ever in gradient. It's only right or wrong.
Like the whole loot box law.
Right, wrong, and unknown.
Yeah, don't forget the loot box law that Rami and I were talking about last year.
Are you talking about the U.S. one?
Yep.
Well, we were talking about that too.
Yeah. And this is again, a lot of the problems with game preservation is that there really is no standard or acceptable process for how this works.
Yeah.
And
I want to address what Ford said. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not exactly that when people use royalty-free art assets, their game is labeled as an asset flip. It's when their assets do not match, kind of thing, and when they look cheap. So, like when it's an RPG Maker game that has just all in, you know, RPG Maker assets, kind of thing, it looks cheap and it looks the same as all the others. So it gets called an RPG Maker game or an asset flip kind of thing. Where when somebody uses, let's say this model of Solid Snake over here for the main character, and this model of Kirby for the enemy, and this model of one of the Swarm from StarCraft, yeah, StarCraft in. They look totally mismatched. Not that that's legal, but let's just we're giving an example here. If they used all three of those, it would clash so hard and mismatch so hard, it would be considered an asset flip. And that doesn't matter if the assets were free or not free. Now the thing is there's basically no way to get all the assets you need from one all-encompassing asset pack. So you have to mix and match things in there, which if you don't hire an artist to actually take those things and bring them in sync kind of thing, then it clashes, and then you have that problem with people calling an asset flip and your aesthetics not being on point. Now here's the thing is, if you're hiring an artist to do that, it's probably cheaper to just hire an artist to do those things from scratch. Then have them modify somebody else's stuff.
Yep, and
but what can be useful is if you find an asset pack that covers a vast majority of what you need, and then you hire an artist to finish it out, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And there's a big difference, as we've seen with developers who just literally use stock assets and do nothing with them, versus those who either touch them up or build off of them. And like Fear and Hunger, for instance, that game is an RPG Maker game, and it looks, again, nothing like the majority of RPG Maker games that we've seen.
That's because they had their own art.
Yep. And they built off of that using that engine. Like, how many games have we seen use Unity, and they use very stock assets, it all looks like everything else, versus, well, a game like Hollow Knight or Ori.
Yeah, and same thing goes with Unreal, because there's that there's stock assets in Unreal. And
how many Fortnite looking games have we seen using the Unreal Engine?
Well, no, they don't have Fortnite looking things. They have that white character, that white robotic looking character.
Everything has like that plastic look to it.
Yeah.
And again, I think we're kind of getting off topic, but you can see again the difference between somebody who's working in the medium versus somebody who is just trying to, copy and paste things in that medium.
Yeah. But, copy and pasting things, for an initial prototype is fine.
Oh, yeah.
Proxies. Proxies are fine, but you cannot release a game with proxies.
When I spoke with the dean who's working on Wasted Knots, he talked about having to do the artwork or, get the art style for that game done. And, yeah, again, like right now there's temp art everywhere. That's okay. It is a pre-Kickstarter build. You can't really complain about temp art at that stage of a game. Now, if it was 1.0 and there's still temp art, that's a different story.
Yeah. Now, you've seen, you know what the current art for my game, Neon Continuum, looks like. But you also remember, I'm sure, what the temp art looked like. Meme-worthy stuff. I mean, it definitely didn't look like an asset flip, but it definitely looked super low quality.
Yeah. But I think we are kind of getting off track here. To bring this back to game preservation, that what makes this very hard when we're trying to decide how we should do this is very much by the fact that the industry is so segmented. We have 3 different console makers. You have all the PC developers. You have all the different computers. Oh, sorry, my notes just decided to stuff up on me. And there's still no set aspect for what it means to preserve a video game.
Yeah. I do want to hit on Matthew's point real quick. Making your own art doesn't matter if it's not good art and it doesn't all match. Which you either need to become an artist or hire an artist for that.
Yep. Now, one thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is something that you said a few minutes ago, Shark, about kind of the life cycle of a video game. Because I brought this up in my post that I wrote, and I hope it's going to go up on Medium in a few days, about why I think emulation and game preservation really should matter. And in that piece, I said just that in today's market, every video game has a retail shelf life. It doesn't matter if you're Nintendo, it doesn't matter if you are, some smaller indie developer. That there will come a point when your game is really not going to earn you any more money anymore. And I think go ahead.
Here's the question. So this video will probably be linked up on the Medium article, right?
It should be if it all goes up accordingly.
Well, to all you Medium folks, make sure to join both of Josh's and my Discord, and subscribe to both of our YouTube channels. Shout out to you guys. But the life cycle is like 3 years, and it does really kind of fall off on your cells. Basically, the way your cells look like in general is like a hockey stick. Basically, with one end, the end where you hold onto the stick, that's sitting down on the ground at 0 kind of thing. And then it's like you put a couple books underneath the angled part to hold it up, and then you put a wire to hold that tip in up kind of thing. So that means like all your cells are right there on that tip in, and then it just shoots down really, really quickly. And then once it hits that sharp thing and it falls down to kind of the minimum kind of thing, then it just slowly tapers off for that 3 years. And then right around the time you hit that 3-year point, you're at 0.
Yep. And in my post, I said that what I think going forward is that there should come a point where a video game just becomes kind of public domain or acceptable to emulate. And in the post, I said it should be at least minimum 5 years after release and at most 10 years. And I think I was kind of being on the generous side there about it.
I don't know. I think I would disagree with that. I would say the point where it becomes able to emulate would not be based off of a time period, but based off of when it's for sale. If it is for sale, then it's not emulatable because it's actively for sale kind of thing. And people can still get it, access to it. They just have to pay for it. They have to not cheap out. And for those who for those that are inaccessible kind of thing, they've been removed, they've been retired or from Steam, or they've been, whatever, then they should be emulatable kind of thing.
Now, the one problem with that is that does then throw the excuse of developers just keep re-releasing ports of games again and again.
That wouldn't matter, because the fact is a port doesn't count. Only the original. Once the original is no longer for sale, it's fair game. Now, if they release a port, if it's a copy and paste port, they just did the same thing. You know what I mean? It doesn't count. Now, if that port has new features or whatever in it, new stuff in it, new content kind of thing, that cannot be emulated until that's no longer for sale.
Yeah,
but
like
that version is available.
Like the Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 remakes, those are completely separate entities compared to the original Resident Evil 2 and 3.
But, again, once that particular game is no longer for sale, it doesn't matter if they copy and paste a new version. Once that is no longer for sale, it is free game to be, emulated, what I would say. So, once Mario 1 was no longer available for sale the first time, then it was emulatable, by my thing. And all the copy and paste, ports and everything, those are just, supplemental for there being an emulator out there kind of thing.
I would also argue that the console goes out of business as well. The console is, when a console is kind of, what's the term they use when they stop selling a console? Is there like a specific term for that?
Going out of business? I don't know.
Whatever. Like when they retire a console, that if you cannot even buy the console anymore for a game, or if the store gets shut off, then I think again, then it becomes fair game.
Yeah, I mean, with a console going down, I mean, when the console goes down, the games are going to be unable to be bought. Because I can pretty much guarantee you there's going to be more consoles than there are going to be copies of the game. So, if the game is still for sale, then the console's still for sale pretty much. Or, and I don't think run into the situation where the game is for sale, but the console isn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somebody could invent that problem, but
I'm sure.
I don't think that's a problem right now. If we were to enact some kind of law or something, we'd probably want to, make an exception for people who want to make that problem, and prevent them from making the problem, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and to Matthew's one, that's something that I said in my piece when I say about like 5 to 10 years, that if somebody is willing to wait, 5, 10, how many years for a game to not be available anymore to get it for free, they weren't going to be your consumer to begin with. Let's face facts there.
Yeah.
Like, we joke about, Nintendo and Blizzard fans. Does anyone honestly think that a Blizzard fan is going to say, you know what? I don't want to pay money to play Diablo 4. I'll wait 10 years and then get it for free.
Well, I might be one of those. Because...
But do you have a phone?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Because here's the thing, is I used to really love Blizzard games.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not put up with their anti-consumer, anti-everything bullcrap, pro-China bullcrap that they do now. And, I have not touched any of their games since Diablo 2.
And again, I picked up
if they were free,
well,
maybe I might touch them if I could eventually find time out of my library of endlessness.
We have all the free time, right? We just sit around and play video games all day, right?
Yeah. So, there's, with their business practices, there's no way I'm going to give them money. But I was definitely a big fan of their older games.
Mm-hmm. And when we talk about, trying to set these timetables up for it, again, there are people who will complain, we're hurting developers. But, no, again, I don't see that argument working, at least in today's market. And I said this in my post, 20, 30 years ago, when maybe we got, 5 to 10 games a month coming out, maybe even less than that, yeah, games had a far longer shelf life. As Shark and I both know, we have, 30 to 50 games being released weekly now?
Something like that.
So, there is more games than there are time. And people aren't going to, again, be that invested in wanting to find or play a game that came out 8 years ago if it's still $20, $30.
Yeah. Well, I would say that you are hurting the developer if the game is still, the original version of that game is still for sale, kind of thing. Because it's not like the game is inaccessible, kind of thing. We're talking about game preservation, kind of thing. Not, if the game is currently preserved, that you can go and buy it if you want it, kind of thing, then I think you would be actually hurting developers. Although, there are scrupulous developers that will take advantage of that and abuse that kind of thing, and again, if we were to create a law kind of thing, that would be a different story kind of thing. We would have to address it, differently, but, we're not exactly lawmakers, so, but I think that, as long as the game is available for sale, in that particular version, it shouldn't be emulatable. But once that version goes away, even if they do a port with the same exact everything, that doesn't renew it, kind of thing. It's like how copyright works, kind of thing. Copyright is available for a certain amount of time or until you change something. You know what I mean? And I would, we would probably need to put a time thing in there, but the time thing is bad, because that doesn't consider, all the video games that we have, because like a live service kind of thing. Think about if Hearthstone was piratable or emulatable after 5 years kind of thing, then anybody can just start up their own Hearthstone server and just make all the money that Hearthstone is making kind of thing.
Well, in the post, I did say explicitly this is for single-player games that are no longer in development. So, like, my rule would only apply after a multiplayer game has been shut down. And kind of going what you said about the game is no longer available. Because we didn't touch on MMO games. There are plenty of online-based titles that are literally not available. They are non-existent anymore. Because the second those publishers shut down those servers, say goodbye.
Yeah. And the thing is when game companies should have a plan for game preservation when they release the game kind of thing. Like on an MMO, like when the game goes down kind of thing, we're going to release the code to people who want it, and it'll be there, and people will be able to launch their own versions. But, they will be able to disable, either disable the monetization completely kind of thing. Your thing fell down behind you.
Oh, yeah, the wind just blew.
and they either could disable the monetization completely, or the monetization could still be linked straight to the developer. Because like other people should definitely not be making money off of their games kind of thing. That goes beyond saying,
Oh yeah, definitely. Like
no ads, no nothing kind of thing. No modifying, the code in such a way. No putting it on a website and then advertising. Like 500 ad banners all over the website. None of that.
This would be like, I would imagine if we do get a point where there is like the quote unquote public emulator, it would be kind of truly for the public. Like no ads, no marketing stuff on it like that.
Yeah, it would be strictly the game. And if they were to mount it on a website kind of thing as a player, then there couldn't be any ads or anything on the website.
Yeah,
maybe there could be ads on the front page, but that's pushing very hard into a gray area kind of thing. And that would that gray area would basically have to be solved on a case-by-case basis, where you might just want to disable that to begin with, just to not have to deal with that gray area kind of thing. Force it to be permanently white and just never have ads on there at all. But at the same time, that causes people who run those servers to preserve them to not be able to be funded.
Yeah,
but at the same time, maybe they could collect donations, but that would go back into the gray kind of thing.
Yeah, like I would imagine it would be kind of like I guess maybe like a governmental body or like its own specific organization that would receive funding to maintain and preserve these games.
Yeah. Like if there was a governmental body that actually knew what the heck they were doing about games, which, is all the government right now, right?
Oh, yes. I know, doesn't like buy and play Mario Kart really well?
Yeah.
I know, let me get a Bernie Sanders on. We can play a DSP together.
There you go. Bernie Sanders, if you're watching, hit Josh up.
There we go.
If you know Bernie Sanders, have them connect Josh and Bernie Sanders.
There we go. I think we got the new craze happening right there.
What about, what's her name?
AOC?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't play Among Us all that much.
But you can play DSP with her.
There we go. If any politicians want to play a DSP, let me know. Or Ultimate Chicken Horse. That'll be fun.
Oh. Could you just imagine?
And let it Shark and I design all the levels.
I come over here and I'm like, let's introduce chaos and more chaos and more chaos.
There we go. And here's 5 arrows all shooting into cannons at different intervals on a swinging pendulum.
Oh, imagine if you could take that swinging pendulum and you could actually attach the rotating thing to the pendulum, and then you fill that with various shooting things. So it swings back and forth at the same time of turning around at the same time as shooting. Imagine that chaos.
We just got like completely off topic there. Oh god, I can't wait for our next Ultimate Chicken Horse tonight. I'm giving Shark so many inspirations here.
It's too bad you can't actually do that.
So I'm gonna get in touch with the Ultimate Chicken Horse developers. So I'm gonna patch that in.
Yeah, exactly. If you know the Ultimate Chicken Horse developers, send them a link to this section. We're golden. Maybe I need to go meet them so I can send them a link to that.
Yeah, there we go. But to get back on topic, yeah, again, like multiplayer live service kind of games have really suffered because of this. Because you not only have the challenge of just getting the original game to work, but you also have to have a server for it. And developers and publishers have come down on people who run cracked and emulated servers of their games.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame.
I think it's fine as long as they're not making money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're making money on it, then you are stealing money from the developer.
Mm-hmm. And if the game has already been shut down and there's no way it's ever going to come back, then all those assets, all that work has just gone up in smoke.
Yep. And you don't want everything to go up in smoke.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a game developer, in the end, you should be making a game that you want everybody else to play. Because this is an amazing game that you're going to make that is not just for you to play. It's you want the world to experience it, kind of thing. So if you want the world to experience it, then you want to be sure that it's preserved in some kind of way. Whether it stays for sale endlessly, like on Steam or something, as long as Steam does not, cease to exist, or like, or GOG or itch.io or whatever platform kind of thing, or you have another method to keep it up.
Yeah. And I know Matthew is, of course, showing about playing XCOM with Donald Trump. I'm sure he would totally win all the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
But XCOM is another point about this. That there are several very big-name games that have freeware versions of them. And yes, you can certainly buy, people are still selling the original XCOM. But the freeware version is often considered more superior because it has all the patches and work that's done with it. And again, when we talk about kind of legacy games, thank you there, that it's a different market than what we look at for games today. That somebody who would really want to play the original XCOM or a Pluck for Super Nintendo, those of you who remember that game, is a far different market than somebody who is wanting to play Shovel Knight, who wants to play Fortnite, or God of War, The Last of Us 2, or anything along those lines. And the part of this issue is that a lot of people, I think, still conflate the two together. That a game that has been sold and released in 1985 should still be viewed the same way as a game that is released in 2021.
I just had a funny thought going to my mind. You playing with Trump, and you say, I got good kind of thing, and Trump will be like, no, that's fake news. and the second you claim to win, he'll be like, he'll sue you and say, no, I won, fight me in court,
Challenge him to a StarCraft match. There you go. And then I get pulled on the Fox News for saying I'm lying.
Yeah.
I'm getting all the demods today, aren't I? Like, the YouTube algorithm's going to have a field day with this video. And I was telling Shark about my controversial analogy for an upcoming video, too. So if I mention that will just complete the banning of YouTube for me, I think.
Yeah.
And there's one point, and I think we may wrap this up in like the next 15-20 minutes, so we may start to like go around circles or get on weird tangents, but there is one important point that I want to mention about this, and that is why I want this. Because I remember I posted about this on Twitter, and a developer got like very defensive with me, saying, "Oh, this is just for people who want to steal video games. You don't want to support developers. You just want to play all these free games." And the point is that yes, I do want to play these free games because
here's a question before you go in there. How many free games do you currently have in your library that you haven't played yet?
Well, let's see. How many games haven't I even played to begin with? I am at 1,087 games right now.
That you haven't played?
Yes.
And how many of those do you think were free?
Well, considering bundles, Fanatical, and all that, probably a good portion of them.
Probably half.
Maybe even more than that at this point. And the point about all this is that game design is at least I think of it as, it's a valid form of studying and learning about game development. And you need to be able to play video games in order to really study them. And this was another topic that I brought for a potential show about what to look at as a game developer when you're playing a game for research. And one of the big things that, Charlotte and I have harped on many times is UI and UX. You can't really understand the UI, at least not truly, unless you are sitting in front of your keyboard or with a gamepad and playing a video game.
Mm-hmm.
And what's an area where a lot of developers tend to struggle with, especially first-timers?
UI.
There we go. And when we talk about this, if you want to be able to study video games and study the design of them, they need to be available. Because otherwise, you're not going to learn from them. And there are plenty of video games that, like to Shark's point earlier about games that aren't available for sale, I can think of a few dozen. I could just immediately start rattling off games that I would play right now if I could find a modern or digital copy, but there aren't any right now. So, what's your recourse to play those games?
You get the emulator.
Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah. And this is, again, like, kind of at the heart of this discussion, that there are games right now, there's a vast majority of them that literally you can't find them. Unless, of course, you want to buy a second or, third-hand copy and, spend maybe double to triple the inflated price of it. But guess what? That money would never go to the developer or publisher.
Yep.
So who is that really hurting if I want to emulate a 15-year-old game that there is no version of it anywhere else?
Scalpers and resellers?
Who I'm sure developers and publishers really care about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, right now, NVIDIA really loves them.
Mm-hmm. And, Nintendo, like we said earlier, Nintendo loves emulators.
Mm-hmm.
They just really love whenever they see a new one pop up. They just can't wait to talk to them about it.
Yeah, they really can't wait to talk about it. Talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
They jump on that opportunity, like
that.
a fanboy to
Insert popular franchise here.
Insert 15 popular franchises.
Mm-hmm. And
like it's like the fanboy is like being pulled in all directions at the same time because they're like circled around him. And so like, he like flattens down like a pancake and expands out and goes in all directions at the same time.
And ultimately, like I've said, like if we treat video games as art, then art needs to be preserved. Whether you like it or don't is besides the point. Again, when we talk about preservation, we're talking about everything. So, put a game like Earthbound or Chrono Trigger next to something like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes by LJN. Or, trying to think, or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde for the NES.
You're thinking about all the masochism now.
Oh, yes.
I mean, they should have a masochism section.
That would just be my library.
LJN games are all in there.
Mm-hmm.
That would be Josh's Home Away from Home.
Of course.
And like...
Bubsy 3D.
Since we're on this bit, something I wanted to talk about, like let's talk about, things that everybody can agree is art, since not everybody can agree, video games are art, even though they are art. Mm-hmm. There are many different arts combined into one, The art of a game is art, number one.
Mm-hmm. The game design of a game.
The music of a game is art, but, so like it's a coalition of many different arts, mm-hmm. So it is definitely, it's an art to the like 16th power or something, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It is more art than anything else, it's more arty than art kind of thing. but let's just talk about traditional art, like old paintings from like Van Gogh and whatnot. The fact is people, specifically museums for the most part, take precarious amounts of time, manpower, mm-hmm. all this stuff to carefully take those paintings and make sure they are shown in their best light. They get special chemicals made for them that are made specifically for the paints.
Special frames.
Make sure that the paintings are clean very, very carefully so they're not damaged, mm-hmm. like with like Q-tips or something more sensitive than Q-tips, just, mm-hmm. Very, very, because they don't want to remove the paint from the surface kind of thing. They just want to clean it. And they will ridiculously, spend like thousands of hours on one painting to get it cleaned and restored. Mm-hmm. They may go into replicating the original paint and filling in these little holes to complete the painting back towards the original kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They spend a ridiculous amount of time to restore these things back to the way they were originally, and then they put them in very careful containers. Like often, like some of them they put into like these vacuum sealed containers kind of thing that mm-hmm. Keep them clean and perfect kind of thing, so that nothing from the environment can actually affect them. And they keep those things away from light so that light cannot irradiate and decay the mm-hmm. paint. Some of them are even kept in like dark rooms kind of thing. Like they go through all kinds of different methods to be sure that art is available forever to be enjoyed kind of thing by people. Mm-hmm. And the original artist is not making any money off of that. Museums
or the rights holders of that
are paying tons and tons of money to make sure that we're getting the truest experience kind of thing from them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of course, museums have, you know, cost to enter kind of thing. But, you know, considering how much millions of dollars they spend on a single painting kind of thing, you know, it's workable. You know, the amount of work that it takes for somebody to just take a game, slap it up on the on a website and put some ads on it, very, very low effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't forget that those museums also get government grants as well.
Yeah, yeah. And that's probably where a good portion of their funding comes from. Probably not all of it. Probably about a third of it comes from.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure the government doesn't care enough to 100% fund them.
Yeah.
Or even close to that. But they probably get about a third. Maybe a quarter from the government. Because the government knows that it is important to preserve pieces of art, which is ironic, seeing how they try to get so many pieces of art shut down in video game form.
Mm-hmm.
And tax them, and you know, and get all the money off of them, you know, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Where, you know, it's like, you know, it's like the government. It's like, you know, we'll help this art, but we're going to absolutely trash this art, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's very, very weird dichotomy there.
Yeah, and this is why I think there should be like a public, you know, almost kind of like a virtual public library for video games like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and you know, when a game is removed from sale kind of thing, it should have to submit its code and everything to the library.
And it should also kind of like null and void any licensing as well. Because, again, part of this issue is that, you know, for any game that makes use of any licensed work whatsoever, it can come back to bite them 5, 10, 15 years down the line.
Or maybe not remove the licensing stuff, but remove the licensing stuff for the museums.
Yeah. For those of you who know the game No One Lives Forever, the very popular FPS kind of like spy, you know, James Bond spy kind of game, was kind of, a lot of people pair No One Lives Forever with Evil Genius in terms of, you know, like the 60s, you know, very spy thematic games. That those games, hi Chris, those games, the two No One Lives Forevers, are stuck in like limbo hell times a million due to the copyright and licensing of it. You know, because the company went out of business, you know, this part of the game got sold to this place, and this part got sold to this one, and nobody knows who has any part of that game. So there is just like no way for a site like GOG to get access to it. And one of my earlier interviews, like this was a written one, I interviewed GOG. And part of their challenge is the fact that they have, in order to be able to legally sell a game, they need to have the, you know, the licensing ownership, or the transfer the rights to digitize or restore that game to GOG. And to do that, they need to get authorization from everybody. If they get 95% of a game, and let's say there's, you know, one wall texture that shows something else that they don't have ownership for, they legally can't sell that game on GOG. So, games that have that mishmash of licensing... Oh, this is definitely not a video here. Or is it? But games that have...
It may be a video that isn't a video.
Sounds like a riddle. When is a video not a video?
When it's a live stream?
There you go. But
until it becomes a video.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, Farzana's Law.
Yeah. And again, if they don't get literally 100% of that trademark done, that game can never be sold again. I remember, like I said earlier, I spoke with Farsight about this. Like, it was a nightmare for them to get the licensing for the Addams Family table. Because you need all the actors. Anyone who died, you need to get confirmation from their estate. You need all the custom artwork. You need all the custom music that was made. All the, graphics on the info panel. You need that to get, authorized. And again, if just one person says, no, I won't give you the rights to that, or they demand too much money, the entire process goes away.
Yep. And to answer Chris's question, yes.
Yes.
and here, the thing is that when, as game developers, we have to take a responsibility that, if something happens kind of thing, the game needs to stay all in one piece, and we need to make sure that we have the ability to keep it in one piece.
It needs to be future-proofed.
We need to make sure that we own all of our assets. We own the music in our game.
Mm-hmm.
We make a remake 20 years down the road, we can still use that music. We can sell that music along with everything else because we own it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
We own every bit of rights, every bit of everything of it. It is ours. Same thing goes with the art, the programming, every bit of the game is actually ours, kind of thing.
And I would also throw in, and if a developer or publisher outright refuses to maintain a game, let's say they say, oh, only 20 people are going to buy it, so why should we put in the work? Then there has to be something in place to say, well, if you're not going to support this game anymore, you refuse, it goes to us, and we're going to emulate and preserve it going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are developers and there are people who will hold on to rights, not use them, but simply use them as a money funnel.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's how, capitalism works in this regard. If you have something that you can make money off of, you're going to try and do it.
Generally, yeah. And that's sad.
Yep. And again, to build off what Shark just said, the game industry needs to do a better job of thinking long term. And I know a lot of people don't like to think long term like this. But again, I pose this question. Do you think of any game that you really love that came out in the last 3 years? Any game at all that it is your favorite game of all time, something that you are going to remember and treasure forever. And I ask you, do you think you're going to still be able to play that game 30 years from now? 50 years from now? And most likely...
the game is live still by then.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Steam does have a conversion.
Mm-hmm.
They have a backup plan for if they're no longer able to keep in business, kind of thing, to where you can keep your games, kind of thing, because they will just basically turn off the
store, the authentication.
Yeah, the store authentication and whatnot. But that doesn't bypass the games that have the additional de novo and whatnot inside of it, because those...
And what about the games that are tied to, like, Uplay and Origin and...
Yeah.
Games for Windows Live that I love so very much.
Yeah. But the direct Steam games,
mm-hmm.
That doesn't have any of that extra bullcrap in it, in theory, will still be available in 30 years.
Yeah.
In theory.
But hopefully,
Steam goes out in the next 5 years, in theory, it'll still be available, 50 years from now.
Yeah. But don't forget, we also need to make sure that the hardware in the future can work on that. So what if, we change, Windows platforms or technology in 30 years? Could we still play a game that was featured on Windows 10? What if Microsoft somehow goes out of business and we all go to another operating system?
Linux.
Yeah. Like, again, this is the issue that we have when it comes to future-proofing. In order to future-proof something along these lines, we need to take everything that is kind of original or platform locked out of the equation. Because if you're still tied to that stuff, it's going to cause these headaches to come back.
Yep. And the issue is we have platforms inception kind of thing. We have, we have the CPU platform kind of thing, whether that's a 32-bit or 64-bit, Intel, AMD, all that stuff. We have the graphics card, the motherboard, we have RAM, we have all these different platforms kind of thing. And then once you get all that together, then you have your Windows, you got your Linux, you got your Apple. Then once you get past that, you got your Steam, your GOG, your Epic Games, your itch.io's. And then once you get past that, then you have the games that are on them. And then once you get past that, you have the potential of de novos and stuff like that. And like it is platform, and hurdle inception kind of thing. And I think as a developer, you can only plan for so many of those.
Sorry about that, my mic was shut off there. There's one other point that I want to emphasize with that. And that is, it is not fair to ask the developers to do this. Like for like a small indie developer saying, oh, you need to make sure your game can be played 80 years from now in the future. No, that's a little too much asked for them. And this is, again, why this kind of emulation is so important. Because, sadly, you can't trust the original console or developer or the rights holder, 50, 60 years down the line. What happens if that developer goes out of business and they sell the rights to 85 different people?
Or Disney.
Yeah. And this is why, again, that future-proofing is such an important point about this. Because you can't accommodate for that. And this, again, is where a lot of these headaches come from. Like, if you don't think about what's going to happen 20 years from now, you're not planning 20 years from now in the future.
I just thought of something. Let's talk about Disney. And more specifically, Marvel. Because Marvel had the same situation where they sold Spider-Man and his properties to Sony.
X-Men as well.
No, they sold X-Men to somebody else, didn't they? I think X-Men went to Fox.
Yeah, you're right.
And all their properties, and then they sold Avengers and rest of Marvel to Disney, and then Disney, I think, is trying to buy out stuff from Sony and stuff from Fox, kind of thing, so that they can actually make the full movies they want to make, kind of thing. But they're not agreeing to the rights transfer.
Yeah.
And Disney is not agreeing to give them all the money in the world. So they will do it, even though Disney has all the money in the world.
Yep. Yeah, the film rights to Spider-Man.
Yeah, but Marvel still has the comic book rights to, I think, everything.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, I've heard the stories that when they sold the rights to the Fantastic Four, that Marvel just killed the whole Fantastic Four comic book line in order to lower the value of it, so people wouldn't care about it when somebody tried to make a movie or use those rights.
Well, they didn't. I don't think they killed that until after they specifically screwed up the movie. And then after they screwed up the movie, then they killed the comic book series.
Copyright law is such a beautiful thing, as we've said before. It's a happy-go-lucky time. And again, there are people saying, we want Disney to buy everything. And then there are people saying, no, dear God, we don't want Disney to buy everything.
No, I definitely don't want Disney to buy everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well, now Disney's going to buy me, as we've
they
said
are
before.
talking.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I would be down for Disney owning all of the Marvel movie rights, just so that they have a complete set kind of thing. But like, I wish, I really wish that Disney did not own anything of Star Wars, because they have really ruined the hell out of that.
Mm.
You know, and they they've done pretty decent with Marvel, luckily. So you know, uh, and I don't like Disney as a company, but I think that it's better for Disney to own all of Marvel's film rights than just part of them. Same thing goes with Fox and Sony. I think they all need to be under one house. All the rights to the one thing,
Mm-hmm.
combined. They all need to be together so that we can get the best quality of stuff.
Yeah.
And right now, Fox and Sony are definitely not releasing the best quality of stuff, and Disney is doing the better of them when it comes to Marvel. So I would vote all of them to go to Disney right now.
Mm.
Although when it comes to Star Wars, I would vote anybody but Disney to the rights
Mm-hmm.
to that.
And I have no care for Star Wars one way or the other, so I am completely neutral in this conversation.
Oh, I used to be a hardcore Star Wars fan. Like I was in all the lore for all the prequels and everything before they even existed, and all the books and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then Disney got Star Wars, and now I'm pretty close to hating Star Wars.
I'm just thinking
running
about
from that, to utter hate of the thing I used to utterly, fanatically love.
this. This stream has really gone all over the place, haven't we? In the last
Yeah.
hour and a half.
I mean, it is game preservation and other forms of preservation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good. But I think I am about out of thoughts on this. And again, I guess to wrap up my final piece, that if video games are truly an art form, then they need to be preserved like art. And the industry needs to take better care of these games. Because again, at some point, you're not really, like, there comes a point where a game is just no longer marketable. That it's not that it should go beyond the original developer, the original publisher, in terms of maintaining and having, to deal with supporting that game. And if you don't or you can't support that game anymore, then it should go to the public. It should become something that should be treasured and preserved.
Yeah. After a certain point, like of not being, basically after it's no longer making the developer any money because they're, they don't own the rights to it anymore or whatever kind of thing. They go out of business. Once it's no longer legitimately for sale in its original form, that original form should become not public domain, but in a way, sort of public domain. Not technically. It should become one of the other rights. Basically, it should be that a museum or whatever can actively do whatever they want with it. Basically, as long as they're not abusing things. There should be no money made off of it unless that money has some pathway to go straight to the developer.
Or maintaining, the actual place.
Yeah.
But again, like, this would be if this was, like, a public entity.
Mm-hmm. And there should be, but as long as the original is available for sale, And, we're not talking about, just copy and paste and here's another version of it. As long as the original version is for sale, then, it should, not be on, it should be, still going to the developers. It's once the developers can no longer make money from it or no longer making money from it, once that balance hits zero kind of thing, zero income, then and zero availability, then it should become, go to the museum.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, when that happens, it will allow more people to enjoy these games and learn about them as well.
Yeah. And sadly, my first game is kind of in that kind of gray area there. It's no longer for sale. It's definitely not making money. It never did. And, it's not for sale anymore, but it is still accessible to play for people who owned it. And of course, if somebody made an emulator on it, I wouldn't complain.
Yep.
But, the fact is that, I have a plan for that. And my plan is I plan on doing a remake. One that will actually, hopefully make money kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. That will be improved as well.
Yeah, it'll be improved in so many ways. And in that, I will also include the original version. So you'll be getting 2 games for the price of 1.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You'll be getting the original and the second one, and you'll be, it'll be vastly improved. Of course, it was already pretty solid game, seeing how it got a 100% positive Steam review score. So, just nobody bought it. But there are definitely issues and whatnot that I want to improve on and things I want to add. And, a game is never perfect, even if they achieve a perfect review score. And I want to make it, closer to perfect. It definitely won't be perfect even after I get there, but, it'll be a lot closer.
Yep. All right. But I think that is a good point to end this discussion on for this week. So we still need to think of a good topic for next week's show. If you have any suggestions, be sure to let us know in the comments or on Discords. And if you want to discuss more about game preservation, again, we are always active on our respective Discord channels.
Yeah. And I want to address what they're talking about right now in chat, about Jar Jar.
Mm-hmm.
Jar Jar, I didn't like him, and there's this fan theory going around on the internet about Jar Jar was actually the Sith kind of thing all along, and all the sabotaging and everything he did, looking like a dummy, was actually all on purpose, to try to trick the Jedi into believing that, number one, he was dumbass, and number two, that he was actively not thinking about actively sabotaging him. And if at the end of the third movie, that cloak got pulled back and it was freaking Jar Jar with a freaking lightsaber and he was beating Yoda down kind of thing, that would have been amazing. That would have totally redeemed Jar Jar in every way.
And again, I have absolutely no care about this at all in terms of Star Wars.
Sad thing is that still doesn't redeem Anakin. That's a train wreck and a half.
All right. Before this turns into the Star Wars cast.
Yeah. So, everybody needs to, look down in the description. You'll find links to mine and Josh's YouTube channel. You're obviously on one of them, but you're not on the other one. Probably. Anyway. So, follow the link to the other one, whether it's mine or Josh's, and subscribe to both of our channels. ring the bells, because otherwise YouTube will not tell you that the streams are live, kind of thing. And you won't ever be able to catch a video live and be here in this active chat like Matthew and Mojo and Chris and everybody else who's here not currently on screen. And definitely join both of our Discords. There's links to both Josh's and my Discords down below. Lots of good stuff there. Both of them have a lot of stuff on game design. Mine more focuses on my games that I'm making, like right now, Neon Continuum. And Josh's, more focuses on his masochism.
And game design.
Yeah, well, we'll both have the game design. You have game design and masochism. I have game design and Neon Continuum. Or our games, rather. And then you have, we both have a little streams and whatnot, and all kinds of good content, for both of us. And we also have our Twitters down there. Josh has his Twitter, I have my Twitter. Go, subscribe to all of them, follow all of them, do all the links. But the best place for all of us is the Discord, because that is the central home for our channels. And hopefully it'll stay that way, depending on what happens with Discord in the future. Because Discord is getting into fuzzy territory right now, and hopefully it stays good. Because I really depend on it. I'm pretty sure Josh really depends on it too.
Alright, but with that lovely note, we will wrap things up for here. I'll be back tonight for our regular game streams. And Shark, when are you doing your next streams?
If things go right, and things have not gone right lately, it'll be I'll have one on Thursday for the Indie Inquiry, Friday for the dev streams, and Sunday for the Save Next Please Stream podcast. And not this. Well, actually, no. This Saturday. Yeah, it is this Saturday, because this Saturday is the 3rd. This Saturday on the 3rd, that'll be our dev chat on my Discord kind of thing. So, join my Discord on the 3rd at 2 p.m. Central Time. Same time as this. Well, an hour before the stream started, kind of thing. Will be our dev chats, where we'll be, making all kinds of reveals, talking basically publicly. It's basically sort of AMA, where we talk to anybody who comes, and everybody can get a first-hand view of the Continuum kind of thing. And, I doubt it. I can pretty much guarantee you there won't be anything playable this Saturday, but one dev chat, hopefully soon, there will be a playable version of the game, and we'll be basically semi-publicly testing the game. So if you join the Discord and then you come to the dev chats, you'll be able to play the game at some point when we have something playable, which probably won't be this Saturday. And I don't want to say that it'll be next Saturday, but I am really, really crossing my fingers that it'll be not next Saturday, but next dev chat. After that, which will be the first Saturday of every month.
All right. So with that said, thank you so much for tuning in. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where is in the art and science of games. Until next chat, everybody, take care.